Hi there, Namaste, Kamcho. This is Ketan Gajjar from the very Apnu, Ahmedabad. Welcome to the Recruitment Curry podcast. Dean, hi.
Hey Ketan, how's it going?
Going very good, Dean. Very good, thank you. Dean, welcome to the Recruitment Curry. We are obviously based in Ahmedabad. It's Saturday. We are recording the podcast, and so firstly, thank you very much. And without further ado, Dean, if you can, give your introduction. Really love your, tweets on recruiting and job hunting. So if you can, help our audience with the introduction, please.
Sure, absolutely. And thank you so much for inviting me to your podcast, Ketan. And I love the name Recruitment Curry. So, I'm really happy to be here as well. So, about myself, so I've been in the recruitment industry for 9 plus years. And I have 100% always been on the agency side. So, just to, put it out there, I've never worked as an in-house corporate recruiter. It's always been on the external staffing agency, recruitment agency side. And I've always specialized in the tech industry. So I actually graduated from university with an honors BA in information technology, and I kind of fell in like most recruiters. I fell into recruitment by mistake. Shortly after graduating, I started my own recruitment business, and I was running that for a few years. And since then, I've worked for other agencies, small sized agencies as well as large sized recruitment agencies, and just recently started my own. And in the tech industry, I've recruited in various areas within tech. I've recruited software developers, business analysts, project managers, infrastructure people. So pretty much across the board for different types of clients. And I'm also a very avid social media content creator as well. So I post across the board in YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. I post a lot of content out there because I see from interacting with candidates, and I'm sure you can attest to this as well. We see a lot of common errors and mistakes that people make that can, very easily be fixed. So that's what motivated me to want to put out content on the various social platforms. So that's just a bit about myself.
Great, great. Thanks, Dean, for your introduction. So today, what we want to talk about, Dean, is job hunting tips for the immigrants, especially the techies, who relocate to with the migration wave going on in Canada now, and then obviously from all across
Mhm.
the world, and obviously other parts of the European continent. So we want to leverage your expertise and your all the content that you've been posting on LinkedIn and Twitter and YouTube. So where should the techies start when they migrate overseas? What's the starting point?
Yeah, Ketan, that's such a great question because we Toronto. So I'm based out of Toronto, Canada. So we're very much a city that attracts a lot of international talent, and a lot of people, they have big dreams of moving to Toronto, given that it's a major city. One of the major things I would say as a tip, like my first tip would be, the mistake I see so many people make is thinking that, hey, when you move to North America or Canada or America, or I think anywhere for that matter, any of your experience from back home, from your country of origin, does not count. And many people, and there's definitely a lot of bad advice going on in that respect as well, where people are being advised, hey, if you're moving to Canada, you're moving to America, any experience you have from wherever you are from before, it doesn't count, which is not the case. Especially in the tech industry. I mean, IT is pretty consistent, and it's pretty much the same no matter where you are in the world. I mean, for example, if you're a Java developer, there's no such thing as Java Indian version, or Java Chinese version, or Java Canadian version. It's no such thing. I mean, it's the same across the board. So to totally not include any of your previous experience, I mean, you're leaving a lot of money on the table, a lot of your expertise and wisdom and your potential that you're not showing. I mean, just a quick example. I was recently speaking with a very talented business analyst recently, and she was advised that to not include any of her experience from India. So she was originally from India. She was advised not to include any of her experience from India on her resume. So the only experience she had was, after coming here, was about 3 years of experience locally here in Toronto. So she was only applying for, like, or being deemed a good fit for junior level positions. But in India, she had around 3 4 years of experience working at a well-known, recognized brand. So I was like, why are you doing this? And she was unfortunately advised to not include that experience. But I mean, all of that experience does count. Like anything you have that you can leverage and bring to the table, you should include on your resume. You should talk about. You should discuss those projects you completed in your country of origin. So that's my major tip. The second tip I like to share, Ketan, is before arriving, start building your network in advance. So and I'm definitely an advocate for LinkedIn. LinkedIn is such a great social networking platform for this. So get involved in discussions, get involved, identify people that you can connect with in advance, recruiters, potential hiring managers, identify the companies, the organizations you're most interested in. And when I say connect and start building your network, that does not necessarily mean, reach out to these people and say, hey, I'm going to be moving there, can you help me get a job? I mean, no, let's approach it from a proper networking standpoint, the same way you would in your own country of origin, right? I mean, wherever you are right now, you probably don't go to networking events and just suddenly blurt out, hey, help me find a job. No, I mean, you build a relationship, you talk to people, you get to know them, you connect with in common interests. Maybe you connect by talking about trends and tech and whatever's going on in your industry. Same thing applies on social media. So when you're connecting with people uh, in the country that you want to move to, build the relationship in the same way. So then by the time you arrive here and come here, you already have a strong network of connections in place, and you can take it to the next level. You can start setting up coffee meetings, or meeting up in person and actually further building the relationship. And by then they already have an idea of who you are, what you're like, and they're like, oh, this guy or gal seems like a really good person. I feel confident referring them for positions in the company, because people want to feel comfortable and confident about referring you as well, right? Because when someone refers you to positions at their company, or refers you to their colleagues or their managers, they're putting their own reputation on the line as well. So they want to feel confident about doing that as well. So be understanding about that. Don't get offended if people don't immediately want to refer you. Understand that you have to earn that trust, you have to build that trust, and that does happen over time. So if you want to make the most use of that time that it takes to build trust, start building the trust way before you arrive to the country that you're moving to. And my final tip, which I wanted to share, and we briefly discussed about, Ketan, was for a lot of people coming from certain countries, when you're addressing someone who's maybe more senior to you, maybe a manager, a supervisor, someone who's a vice president, etc., you're tempted to refer to them as sir or madam or ma'am. So at least here in North America, and definitely in certain parts of Europe, it's not the case. I mean, we refer to people on a first name basis, right? So if I was speaking to Ketan, if Ketan was a potential manager, I would not say, "Oh, hello, sir. Thank you for this meeting." I wouldn't say. I would say, "Hi, Ketan. Nice to meet you." That's how I would carry on the conversation. So keep this in mind, and again, it comes down to the culture of the location that you're moving to. So just keep that in mind. But at least here in North America and certain parts of Europe, it's on a first name basis. So I mean, those would be my top three tips.
Sure, fabulous. In terms of paraphrasing, one is, don't discount your, experience from the country of origin, especially in tech, because like you said, Java
Yes.
is Java everywhere. There's no Chinese version, or
Yes.
there's no Indian version of Java. It is Java. That's one. Two is, build your network in much ahead in advance. That's an interesting point, Dean. You mentioned about networking, that don't start pitching for jobs. And then I believe a lot of
Yeah.
people hunting jobs, they believe that, okay, fine, networking is actually, asking for jobs. That, okay, fine, I'm moving overseas, or I'm moving to Toronto, and do you have a job? So it's a very sensitive
Yeah.
topic that way. And then, I see on a lot of forums, a lot of recruiters from North America, recruiters from the UK, that, you know so many Indian candidates, or candidates from the overseas, they reach out, and they can't help these candidates because they're not, onshore. So when they reach out to the recruiters,
Yeah.
especially, from the, recruiting agency or recruiter's perspective, what approach would you recommend, them sort of reaching out to you? Yes, networking, connecting with Dean, and then, engaging in conversations, but apart from that, any other tips that you'd suggest that they sort of follow, when networking? So, for example,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah. So I mean, in regards to connecting,
yeah, sorry.
yeah. Sorry. Go ahead, Ketan. I think there's a bit of
Yeah,
a
so
lag.
yeah, sorry. So for example, if I'm relocating in, let's say, 12 months time, and then, I reach out to Dean, I'm connecting, and I'm engaging with your content. But apart from engaging, should I ask Dean that, okay, fine, this is my resume. Would you have any inputs on my resume, or should I ask for tips on resumes, or tips on the kind of jobs I should apply for in the future, or is it too soon before arriving on shore?
Yeah, great question, Keaton. So I would say this could depend on the recruiter, right? Like for me for example, like I connect with so many people who are not yet in Toronto, but they will be moving here, at some point in the future. And I personally, as a recruiter, I take a very long term view on the relationships I build with candidates. So with myself, if you let me know that, hey, you're a great candidate, you have great projects under your belt, great experience, then I most probably will set up a conversation, at least so we can chat a bit more about yourself, and learn a bit more about you, and see if there's any way I can place you at some point in the future after you arrive. But to be frank, that's not the case with all recruiters out there, right? Because the primary focus every recruiter has is number one. Every recruiter's primary focus is on, what am I recruiting on right now, and who are the potential candidates I can possibly present to my clients or to the hiring team. That is the first priority for any recruiter. The second priority, of course, is okay. Who can I potentially help at some point in the future? What is in our pipeline around the corner? And then based on that, they will network with those types of candidates. So if you're overseas, maybe not all recruiters will be open to communicating with you, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't attempt to get in touch and introduce yourself. And with recruiters, you want to describe as much about yourself and what you bring to the table. The mistake I see many people make, and I get so many messages, and I'm sure, Ketan, you get a lot of messages from people from other countries and whatnot. Is the messages are usually very vague and don't include much information about the candidate. Like the typical message I get is, "Hey Dean, my name is so and so. I'm a software developer. Let me know if you have any opportunities for me, or can you help me with the job?" So I mean, it doesn't really tell me much about this individual, and it doesn't really capture my attention. So if you're going to write a message, at least put in some more information about yourself, right? If you're a software developer, talk about what languages, what tech you use, what type of projects you're working on right now. I mean, that is the stuff that's going to get the recruiter's attention, because the recruiter is going to be thinking, okay, I can definitely probably help this person out at some point in the future, because we're expecting some roles in that area, in XYZ period of time. So put more information about yourself, what you bring to the table, what skill sets you have, so that even if you'll be arriving maybe in a couple of months down the line or a year down the line, at least you're getting the recruiter's attention, and they might very well be open to having a further conversation with you.
Sure, sure, definitely. And in terms of putting the resumes online, apart from LinkedIn, what job portals would you recommend? Especially from the techie jobs tech jobs perspective. They post their
Yeah, so
resumes.
yeah, absolutely. So I mean, this could depend on which region of North America you might be moving to, but here in Toronto, the most popular ones outside of LinkedIn are Monster, Indeed. We have another one called Career Builder. Those are the main ones, but I would say the most popular is, right now, I mean, is probably Indeed. Indeed is probably the best one, aside from LinkedIn.
Sure. And again, this is a slightly sensitive topic. Should they get the resumes written by resume writers, or should they write their own resumes?
Yeah, great. That's definitely a great tough question as well. I would say, Ketan, I mean, look, on the one hand, if you're you might not be someone who's able to put together your own resume and stuff like that, and you might need some assistance from someone, like a professional, right? So if you do opt to use a professional resume writer, try and make sure that they have experience, either previously writing IT or tech related resumes in the past, and make sure you're able to get some testimonials, or at the very least, or definitely make sure that they have some experience, maybe in the past recruiting in the tech sector, maybe either as a hiring manager, or even as a recruiter. Like that would be, I think, be very helpful, because I see sometimes people get assistance from professional resume writers who have not written resumes, or have no real strong exposure in the tech industry, and therefore the resumes might not be a good fit for something in the tech sector. So I would say look out for those.
Of course. When it comes to going for interviews, what tips would you advise on, especially for techies who are migrating again, applying for jobs in Toronto or North America?
Yeah, sure. I mean, look at the essence, job interviews, and I give this piece of advice to like I talk about this on social media all the time, but you want to really try and not look at the interview as just an interview. Understand that is ultimately it's a business conversation, right? Whatever your field is, whether you're a software developer, whether you're a help desk analyst, whether you're a VP or someone higher up the chain at the organization. The interview is a business conversation, right? The organization is trying to find, they have a problem or they have some kind of an end goal or set of outcomes they're trying to achieve, and they're there present at the interview because they want to find out if the person sitting across from them has the expertise, the ability, the knowledge, etc., to help them achieve what they're trying to achieve. At its essence, that's what the interview is. So the interview is not just about yourself as a candidate. It's also not just about the business or the organization as well. It's about the intersection between the two, right? Because based on what they're trying to achieve, they're looking for that subset or that collection of skills and expertise you have that will help them achieve what they want to achieve. Now, of course, at your end, you have to know what you want from a career perspective, because you don't want to just go for any single job out there. But if you really want to get the attention of the hiring manager, the recruiter, you want to first and foremost find out what they're trying to achieve, what skills and expertise is required in order for them to achieve that, and then based on that you want to highlight what you bring to the table that is relevant to what they're looking for, because that's ultimately what's going to really get their attention is what skills, what expertise you have that's going to help them achieve what they want to achieve, and everything else is of course icing on the cake, right? A great personality, good rapport, you have the right cultural fit and all that stuff. I mean, definitely all that stuff is very important, but at the core, you need to make sure you're addressing what's relevant to the hiring team. Of course, aside from the fact that whether it's the right career opportunity for you, at the interview.
So, as a recruiter, Dean, how do you prepare your candidates, before the interview? And that's something that's really going to be very helpful, to people who are migrating actually, because if they are attending their first or second interviews, their style of being interviewed in, obviously in their country of origin is going to be very different compared to North America or somewhere in Europe. So how should they prepare? What should they be ready with? One, personally, and two is, from the expectation perspective, when they are actually going for the interview.
Yeah, so I mean, the first tip I always give is, always, 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 I mean, and there's no exceptions to this, always research the company that you're going to be interviewing with. The worst thing is, when you're sitting with the employer and they ask, so what do you know about us, or what do you know about our company? And you're like, you don't know anything about the company. And, this doesn't happen very frequently, but, you want to eliminate that. So do some research on the company. Now, this doesn't mean spend hours and hours researching the company. Have a good general understanding about what they do, what their keystone projects, and what are their most popular products or services or solutions. You have to have an overall understanding of the company, right? Because they want to see, and they employers usually want to lean towards candidates who have a genuine interest in the company itself as well, right? So definitely research the company. Now, the second thing you want to do is you want to have a strong understanding of the role, the projects, the job itself. Now, if you're being represented by a staffing agency or a recruitment agency, this is where you might have a slight advantage because they'll be able to coach you on maybe some insider information, especially if it's a client that they've been representing for a while. They'll be able to provide you with a lot of useful information about who the client is, who the interviewer is, what's their personality like, what's most important to them, more details about the project. But outside of that, let's say you're not being represented by an agency, then you have to really study the job description. Now, when I say study the job description, that does not mean just read it over once. That means line by line, go over the job description, examine the bullet points, connect the bullet points with which are usually requirements. Connect that with potential problems and challenges the organization might be facing, because these might be topics that might be covered during the interview itself. So the job description can give clues about what might be discussed at the interview itself. So that'll allows you time to prepare. The third thing is make sure that based on your study of the job description that you're preparing relevant key projects that you have completed. Now, you and I, all of us, we have certain things, certain accomplishments we have that we are very excited about, which is great. But understand that what will most excite the hiring team is what will be of most relevance to them. So, based on your study of the job description, or what information your recruitment agency gave you, You now want to figure out, okay, what do I have in my experience under my belt that is most relevant to the organization? You want to focus your attention on those particular projects and experiences. The fourth thing is, make sure you spend some time on LinkedIn, research the interviewers, right? Who's going to be interviewing you? Who is going to be present at the interview? You want to briefly, look them up on LinkedIn. Maybe don't add them just yet. That might be, some people consider that a little creepy. So don't add them on LinkedIn just yet, but at least look at their profile, examine their career history, see what their career path has been like, right? You'll have people who come from a very technical background, so you can make the assumption, okay, they're going to be thinking more from a technical standpoint. Maybe their questions are going to be from more of a technical standpoint. They're going to ask more technical questions. Then you're going to see people who come from maybe a more business career path, okay, and they got into tech from a more from the business side. So you can assume, okay, this person might be asking more business oriented questions. Their perspective is more from a business standpoint. So just a few examples there, right? So examine their career paths. It's going to give you an idea about what their perspective might be like, what might be most important to them, and you can certainly maybe even anticipate the types of questions they might ask you, right? And also, aside from that, you might see some commonalities between yourself and them. Maybe you went to the same university. Maybe you have some common past companies that you work for, right? So these are also potential areas where you can build rapport at the interview and connect with them as well. So make sure you're doing that. And those these are just a couple. Like, I can go on and on for, like, many tips, but I would say those are some of the major tips I usually share with candidates when I'm preparing them for the interviews.
Sure, sure. Very, very helpful tips there, Dean. And then, one more thing. So when applying for jobs, so I'm set on the job portal right now. I'm scrolling through a number of jobs, and this is again, there are different schools of thoughts on this question. Sh- should they apply for jobs? If they match, let's say, 50% of the requirement, or what is the bare minimum you would recommend? Before they click apply for respective job.
Yeah, Ketan, this is such a great question because I think so many people, they either apply for jobs they should not be applying for, or they completely rule themselves out of jobs that they can very well qualify for, right? And I'm sure you'll agree with me on this, Ketan. Like, oftentimes when us recruiters, when we meet with our clients who are hiring managers, I mean, of the 20, 30 bullet points on the job description, I mean, not all of them are absolute must-haves, right? I mean,
Sure.
usually it comes down to maybe three, four, five things that are extremely important for them, and everything else is like, we're flexible with everything else. So that being said, as a job seeker, when you're looking at the job description, you don't know which of those bullet points are key, which of those are most important. Of course, aside from the core skills, okay. So for example, if you're a JavaScript developer, obviously you have to have the core skill set of being a
Of
just
course.
JavaScript developer, right? You have to know JavaScript. But outside of
Totally.
that, I mean, if you meet, like, I'd say at least if you meet 70% of what's listed in the job descriptions, you should apply, because chances are you meet that top 4 to 5 things that the hiring team is really looking for in an ideal candidate. You can make that assumption. So I would suggest, if you meet at least 70% of what's required outside of the core requirements, then chances are you probably are exactly who they're looking for, because not each and every one of those bullet points are absolute must haves. It usually comes down to, 4 or 5 things on the job description. The hiring teams are like, we have to have someone who has these things, but outside of that, they're usually pretty flexible. So I would say, again, as an applicant, you don't know what are those 4 or 5 important things. So as long as you have the core skills, outside of that, examine, okay, do I meet at least 70% of what's required for the role? Then chances are you're probably the ideal candidate. So go ahead and apply.
Definitely. One last question, Dean, and then, so what are your thoughts about this is the ongoing topic across LinkedIn, Twitter, across social media, beating the ATS.
Oh my God, yeah. Yeah, you just opened up a whole can of worms, right?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's an ongoing topic, and there are so many people saying so many things. So, what do you think?
Yeah, so I mean, look, from my perspective, the whole concept of, okay, beating the ATS. it's interesting to me because you and I as recruiters, we know there's not really anything to beat, because every resume submitted to an ATS is actually inside. It's within the ATS. It's there, so you don't really have to beat anything from that standpoint. Your resume is
Yeah.
definitely there if it's been uploaded to an ATS, right? But the key question is, and I think what all of us need to examine is, okay, we're in the ATS now. How do we increase our chances of making sure the resume stands out, right? So it's actually being seen. So the first thing is you got to make sure as much as possible when you're applying for a job, definitely make sure you're customizing it for the job that you're applying for, right? If you have a one size fits all resume, yes, it's easy. Yes, it's not going to be time consuming. It's going to be easy for you to just quickly apply, and just keep hitting submit, submit, submit. But you sacrifice on maybe the customization aspect, right? Because if a recruiter is looking for specific things based on a job that they're recruiting for, they're going to be entering specific keywords on the ATS. So for those of you who have not used an ATS, it's pretty much in all essences, it's like a recruiter's version of a CRM, right? It's a customer relationship management system.
Yeah.
And how us recruiters look for resumes within the ATS is based on keyword searches, right? So we might search for Java developer or JavaScript, maybe a combination of these different skill sets. And that's how we find resumes. So if your resume is more customized, there's a much higher chance of you being found within the ATS. Now, that being said, you also don't want to depend on that either, right? Because that, although that does increase your chances, I mean, you might be one of, who knows, hundreds, if not thousands, of other applications or resumes with the exact same keywords on your resume. So my final tip in regards to this, Keaton, is don't depend only on just submitting your resume to the customizing your resume, submitting to an ATS, and then just sitting back and crossing your fingers, hoping for the best. I always advise, let's take a more proactive approach. See who you can connect with directly at the recruitment agency or even the organization. You want to see who you can reach out to directly. See if you can build a connection, build a relationship, get in contact, get their attention, and see if there's any way you can stand out above and beyond that, right? Because the statistic is, on average, for every job posting, there are on average 250 applications submitted for every job posting out there, right? So to stand out amongst 250 applications, you do have to go above and beyond. So you want to make sure that you're also taking proactive steps in making direct contact with either recruiters or potential hiring managers that do want to meet with you, who do want to know more about you, but your resume is simply just lost in a pile of, like, hundreds, if not thousands.
And which is where going to the second point that you mentioned, at the start of the podcast, which is networking, connecting
Yes.
with the professionals from your industry, engaging with them, having conversations rather than pitching for the job straight away.
That's right. Absolutely.
Great. And anything else, Dean, over and about this, especially for the migrants to Toronto or to Canada, actually, techies, that you'd recommend from job hunting perspective.
Yeah, I actually did want. So, yeah, before I get to that, I did want to clarify one thing, because you mentioned something very important about the networking aspect, Ketan. Like, the exception in that approach, I would say, would if you're reaching out to recruiters, I would suggest people get straight to the point as much as possible, right? Because with recruiters, if you're going off topic, you're talking about the weather or sports and trying to build a relationship like that,
Yeah.
it's not going to work, because recruiters are very, very focused and targeted in terms of what they do every day. So the exception in your networking approach, like with recruiters, just feel free to be as direct as possible and get straight to the point, right? So I just wanted to
Sure.
clarify that to make sure everyone understands that. But outside of that, look, I'm such a huge fan of LinkedIn, and I'm definitely starting to get used to Twitter and stuff like that. But start being active on social media. I mean, it's a free way for you to start marketing and branding yourself. Don't think of yourself as just an individual. Think of yourself as a standalone business, right? And what does a business have to do? Well, a business has to be known. A business has to market itself. A business has to position itself as credible. So start seeing yourself as a business and start marketing yourself as a business, and start looking at social media as a platform for you to do that. Share your expertise. Just follow Keaton. I mean, look at Keaton. Like, he's constantly sharing tips and advice on Twitter. And what does that do? Well, that establishes his own expertise, his own brand, like, right? Because you folks out there, that you can follow him, and he's an expert. He's known in his space. So you should be emulating that and doing that for yourself, right? For those of you in tech, for example, I mean, you have a wealth of knowledge, and you're at the forefront of pretty much human progress right now. So start talking about the stuff you do. Talk about the trends in your industry. Start allowing people to see that, hey, this person knows their stuff and they're well known in their industry, and that's how you're going to get known. That's how you're going to build credibility, and you're going to start getting inbound leads as well. Then, right? Then companies are going to start noticing you. Recruiters are going to be start noticing you, and you're going to get inbound opportunities your way where they want to talk to you. They want to connect with you. They want to invite you to their podcast. That's how me and Keaton are going to connect. And I definitely
Yeah.
would want to have Keaton on my podcast in the future as well, right? So this builds your credibility and your brand. So my final advice, Keaton, is, for all the people out there, start looking at yourself as a standalone business, right? You have your own brand, you have your own business, and take a more proactive stance on building that brand. So you can get known, and you can put yourself out there and build that credibility for yourself as well.
That's a great advice, Dean, and it's I think that the most important thing, and especially from tech perspective, they have a wealth of knowledge and information, and then there's so
Yeah,
much for them
so
to
much.
share, and then
Yeah.
every day, even a couple of tips, they can just expand on every little thing. So one of the best ways to be ahead of the game, compared to like you said, 1 is to 250. So that definitely puts
Yeah.
them ahead, whoever does it.
Yeah, absolutely. And just one more thing I wanted to add to that is, especially on LinkedIn, for those of you in tech out there, on LinkedIn, there is a huge shortage of good, tech related content. So that's a huge opportunity for those of you in tech, to, start posting stuff. But don't expect things to happen overnight, and don't worry about the likes and the comments and stuff like that. It's about consistency. So, just put out good information, and you're going to build a very strong brand around yourself.
Can't agree more on that point, Dean. So Dean, you shared some really valuable inputs for the new migrants, and then job hunters actually overseas. Where can they reach you? Especially from LinkedIn perspective. Obviously on your LinkedIn. So I'll add the your LinkedIn profile on the podcast. If you don't mind.
Yeah, sure, absolutely, Ketan. Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, I'll share the link with you. And yes, LinkedIn is definitely one of the best ways to connect with me, and stay in touch, and follow me for more tips and advice as well. And also on Twitter as well, where I share the same platform as Ketan, so which is also a great platform, Twitter. So you can find me on there as well.
Definitely. So I'll add your Twitter handle and LinkedIn link as well, for people to connect and follow you. So Dean, once again, thank you very much for being on the Recruitment Curry. Really enjoyed the conversation and then loved the tips. Hopefully, we can sort of reconnect again and talk about a lot of other things on on the Recruitment Curry, from your perspective, in job hunting and recruiting. So obviously switching off from India. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ketan. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for your time, Dean.